$50,000, Daniel said smoothly, raising his champagne glass as if to toast me. That's what it'll take to secure your seat at the table. The breeze from the ocean caught the ends of my shawl, but it wasn't the wind that made me cold. I looked at my daughter, Rachel, radiant in a custom silk gown, her lips still glossy from the stylist's touch. She didn't flinch. Or, she added with that same calculated calm she'd picked up during her junior year at Boston University, you can enjoy the peace and quiet of early retirement, elsewhere, somewhere warmer, maybe Arizona. I blinked, once. Then I smiled. They didn't notice the slight tremble in my hand as I sipped from the crystal flute. I let the silence stretch, just long enough to make Daniel shift uncomfortably in his polished Italian shoes. Then I leaned in slightly, my voice soft but slicing. You forgot one thing. Their faces changed, just a flicker, but I caught it. A hint of uncertainty behind Daniel's smugness. A flicker of something unspoken in Rachel's eyes. 3 hours earlier, I had arrived alone at the Ocean View Cape Resort. The valet barely glanced at my second-hand sedan before handing me a claim ticket. The concierge hesitated when I said the bride was my daughter. Rachel had insisted I come early to help with details, but when I found her, she barely looked up from her phone. "You're late," she'd muttered, gesturing for an assistant to escort me. Table 19, in the back, near the speaker setup. From the far edge of the reception lawn, I watched other mothers of the bride, laughing, hugging, being ushered around by doting daughters. I sat by myself, invisible, sipping water while servers mistook me for part of the catering staff. 2 years ago, I emptied my retirement account to help Rachel open her boutique. Rachel's Edit. My name was nowhere on the awning, not on the paperwork she handed out, not in the interviews she gave to local business journals, but legally, I still held 51% of it. That was Sarah Lynn's idea, my old high school friend turned paralegal, who had insisted I protect my investment. Silent partner Elaine, she'd said, but not powerless. I had never thought I'd need it, until this moment. Back at the reception, the sun dipped toward the sea, lighting the sky in gold. Daniel was still talking. Look, this isn't about money, it's about optics. You've made sacrifices. Sure, but now Rachel's in a different circle. The past can't come to the future party, if you know what I mean. I stared at him. Rachel shifted closer, placing a manicured hand on my wrist. This is for everyone's good, for our peace of mind. You won't be alone, Mom. The place in Arizona has lovely gardens, and we'll call, occasionally. I remembered a night 18 years ago, rain pounding against a cheap Boston apartment window, my ex-husband asleep after another outburst, 4-year-old Rachel clutching her rabbit toy in the hallway, eyes too wide for someone so small. That night, we left, with nothing but a duffel bag and $237 hidden inside a hollowed-out book. Now here we were. I straightened. "Excuse me," I said politely, turning toward the resort's main building. "I need to powder my nose." As I walked, I didn't go to the bathroom. I kept walking, past the tents, past the photographers, down a private path that led to the beachside alcove where no one could see me. I sat on a weathered bench and pulled out my phone, texted 2 words to Sarah. "Sand Castle." Her reply came in seconds. "Understood. Deliveries in motion. Legal team online. You okay?" "I will be." For 7 minutes I breathed. The breeze, the waves, the fading sun, none of it touched the storm inside me. I wasn't angry. I was clean, cold, clear. By the time I returned to the reception, the coordinated chaos had begun. The wedding coordinator approached Daniel's parents with a sealed envelope. Servers quietly handed identical envelopes to 3 older men near the bar, unregistered boutique investors Daniel had brought in behind my back. Each envelope contained legal notification of an immediate asset freeze, pending audit, and a list of financial irregularities. Then came the digital strike. Rachel's business email system, still tied to my administrator access, sent out an auto-notification blast crafted by Sarah's team. Effective immediately. Boutique operations suspended, financial review in progress. I moved quietly around the venue, just far enough to stay on the perimeter, watching it unravel like a slow-motion landslide. Daniel's father stood abruptly, shouting for his son. Rachel's face had drained of color. She caught sight of me and rushed over. "Mom," she whispered, gripping my arm. "What the hell is happening? You can't do this." "I already did," I said simply. Daniel was beside her now, eyes narrowed. "You have no idea what this will cost you." I met his gaze, unblinking. "You thought I was broke, powerless, just the old woman who raised your wife. But I'm also the 51% you overlooked. You're bluffing. Try me." Rachel's voice trembled. "Please, just stop. We can fix this. Tell us what you want." I took a breath, looked at my daughter, my only child, the one I'd lifted out of darkness, the one now trying to bury me in daylight. "You forgot one thing," I repeated. "I taught you how to survive. I never taught you how to betray without consequences." Her eyes welled up. "Mom, please." I turned away, the music behind me slowing into awkward silence. If you've ever been overlooked after giving your all, type 1, you're not alone. "Built from nothing," Elaine whispered, her breath catching. She stared at the woman on stage, flawless in a navy jumpsuit, mic in hand, smiling at the applause. She said, "Built from nothing." Elaine stood in the back of the small event hall, clutching the invitation in one hand and a wrapped bouquet in the other. Rachel was being honored as one of Boston's young entrepreneurs under 30. The room was full of polished people clinking glasses, but Elaine felt invisible, as she often did these days. She'd skipped work to come, even splurged on a new pair of shoes. Not expensive ones, just better than the scuffed flats she wore cleaning houses. And now, her daughter, the girl she'd once carried into a Greyhound station in the middle of the night, was rewriting their history. Rachel's words on stage were smooth. When I opened Rachel's edit, I had a vision. No safety net, no handouts. "Just drive, discipline, and a dream." The crowd applauded again. Elaine's chest tightened. No handouts? She thought of the $97,000 she had drained from her retirement fund. The early mornings, stocking inventory. The nights she mopped the store's floors so Rachel wouldn't have to pay cleaning staff. Silent sacrifices, unnamed. She slipped out before the final toast. Back at her apartment, Elaine sat on her worn-out sofa, the bouquet unopened beside her. She opened her laptop and pulled up the quarterly boutique reports. Sarah still sent them regularly. Technically, Elaine was still majority owner, even if Rachel never acknowledged it publicly. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing Rachel's voice. "Nobody gave me anything." The next week, Elaine stopped by the boutique unexpectedly. She had picked up a few new scarves from a discount distributor she thought might interest Rachel's fall collection. But when she walked in, no one recognized her. A young salesgirl in trendy boots greeted her like a stranger. "Can I help you find something?" Elaine smiled tightly. "I'm just browsing." Rachel was near the counter, speaking with a woman in a tailored coat. They were laughing. The customer asked, "How'd you get started?" Elaine froze, instinctively listening. Rachel's tone shifted, confident, bright. "Honestly, I started with nothing but an idea. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't let the past weigh you down." Elaine backed out before she was noticed. She didn't cry, she just walked. A few days later, Elaine got a call from her supervisor at the office where she answered phones part-time. "We've had some concerns," her manager Eric said vaguely, "about discrepancies in the data logs, client info being misfiled." Elaine blinked. "I haven't touched the client records. I only take calls." "Well," Eric cleared his throat. "Megan flagged the entries, and there's a pattern." Megan, the 20-something admin who smiled like a friend but always made Elaine repeat herself in meetings. The one who'd asked Elaine to cover her lunch breaks but never returned the favor. Elaine's stomach twisted. Eric continued, "I'm not accusing you, but we need to review your system access." After the call, Elaine opened her personal drive and scanned her records. She had email timestamps, proof of calls she took, copies of entries she logged. All of it backed up. Still, the implication stung. First Rachel, Now this. It was as if her invisibility had become armor for others to weaponize. That weekend, Rachel finally called. David thinks we should expand into South End, she said casually. There's a space he knows. You'd love it, Mom. Exposed brick, huge windows, classic you. Elaine frowned. And how will you finance that? Rachel laughed. Oh, come on, we've been profitable for 2 years. We have options. Does that include taking on new investors? There was a pause. Mom, Rachel said carefully, we're handling that. Don't worry. You didn't answer my question. It's not your concern anymore. Elaine stared at the wall. I'm still 51% owner, Rachel. Another pause. Longer. Then, you never act like it. That stung more than the award speech. I didn't want credit, Elaine said. But I do want honesty. Rachel sighed. We'll talk later. The next day, Elaine did something she had never done. She logged into the shared boutique Google Drive folder, something Sarah had quietly secured when drafting the original partnership. There, amid lookbooks and vendor contracts, she saw it. A spreadsheet titled Mom Management. She hesitated, clicked. Her hands shook. It was a multi-tab file with headers like Visibility Strategy, Financial Extraction Timeline, Post-Wedding Communication Reduction Plan. Under Visibility, bullet points read, Seat Elaine at rear table, not in direct view of cameras. Avoid joint photos with investors. Mention contributions as early emotional support only if asked. Under Financial Extraction, push for boutique relaunch donation by January. Encourage legacy contribution toward wedding expenses. Frame as gratitude opportunity. And finally, highlighted in yellow, remember the end goal, full financial support with minimal long-term interference. D.W. Daniel Whitmore. Elaine's vision blurred. That night, she met Sarah at a small cafe near the law firm. I need to know what my legal options are, Elaine said calmly. Sarah nodded. You want to take back control. I want to be ready. Sarah pulled out her tablet. Your ownership allows you to freeze operations, initiate an audit, and block major changes unless you co-sign. Elaine exhaled slowly. Then let's prepare the paperwork. 3 days later, she received another email, this time from Rachel's assistant. Subject line, Investor Welcome Packet. Attached was a slideshow naming new silent partners, equity dilution proposals, and a business roadmap that completely erased Elaine. Her name wasn't mentioned once, but there was a note from Daniel at the bottom. By the time Elaine notices, the paperwork will be finalized. Elaine closed the laptop. She stared out the window, then picked up her phone and sent a single message to Sarah. Draft contingency protocol, I'll call the shot. If you've ever been erased from your own legacy, type 2. Your voice still matters. Elaine was scrubbing the office break room sink when she heard it. Yeah, Megan rewrote all the Q3 projections herself, said Brian, the new intern, loud enough for the whole hallway to hear. The partners were so impressed. They said it salvaged the whole presentation. Elaine froze, sponge still in hand. Those numbers weren't rewritten. They were hers. She'd stayed late 3 nights in a row correcting Megan's chaotic spreadsheet, fixing formulas, catching duplicated data, organizing the graphs. Megan had been out working remotely, which apparently meant weekend trips to the Hamptons. Elaine stepped out just in time to see Brian high-fiving Megan, who beamed back at him. When she caught Elaine's eye, there was no guilt, just the slow blink of someone who had already erased her. Again. Elaine turned away, heart thudding. Not here. Not again. Back home, she closed the door, pulled off her shoes, and sat at the kitchen table in the dark. A folder sat in front of her, labeled in Sarah's handwriting, Contingency Protocol. She had asked for it weeks ago, when the first cracks started to show. Sarah had warned her then, once you press go, there's no going back. Elaine hadn't looked inside, not until now. Inside were 3 sealed envelopes with color-coded tabs. Red, audit activation. Blue, investor notification. Black, executive override. At the bottom was a USB drive labeled R Edit Holdings Backup, Admin Chain. She plugged it into her laptop. Inside were clean, time-stamped logs of every transfer from boutique accounts to Daniel Whitmore's shell corporations, $5,000 here, $12,000 there, each labeled as consulting, venue scouting, or business development. The total diverted, 212,987. Elaine sat very still. The next day, she met Sarah at a diner off Commonwealth Avenue. "You ready to go scorched earth?" Sarah asked, folding her laptop open. "I'm ready to protect what's mine." Sarah nodded. "We'll start with a preliminary legal notice. No filing yet, but it'll rattle cages." Elaine hesitated. "What if it hurts Rachel too much?" "She's a grown woman," Sarah said gently, "and she's chosen to be complicit." Elaine closed her eyes. She could still picture Rachel at age 7, wearing her oversized library card around her neck like a badge, begging to read just one more chapter. That little girl was gone. In her place stood a woman building empires on erasure. Later that week, Elaine received a short, curt message from Rachel. "FYI, we've finalized new investor terms for South End expansion. We'll forward press kit once released. Excited for what's next." No mention of Elaine, no request for consent, no acknowledgement that her 51% stake gave her veto power. Attached was a PDF with the new business logo, Our Edit Collective. Her name was gone entirely. Elaine stared at it for a long time. Then she forwarded the document to Sarah. Subject line, green light. Let's start. The audit began quietly. Sarah's team sent formal notices to every vendor, partner, and listed investor, requesting verification of contracts and disclosures. Most complied quickly, some clearly nervous about pending legal review. But the real domino fell on Thursday morning. That was when Elaine received the forwarded email from an anonymous boutique employee. The message had been sent by Daniel. "Phase out silent investor. Consolidate control post-marriage. If necessary, push elder care narrative. Schedule signature removal meeting within 14 days. Beneath that was a proposed fake document to be presented to Elaine after the honeymoon. Something about streamlining operations for legal simplicity, a lie, a trap. Elaine felt something inside her go cold. They weren't just betraying her, they were preparing to delete her. That night, she sat on the floor of her bedroom, back against the bed, paper spread out in front of her. Photos of Rachel at age 4, holding her rabbit, copies of the boutique's first receipts, screenshots of Daniel's fake LLCs. And in the middle, the unsigned partnership contract with her own name in bold ink. Elaine Harper, managing majority partner. She finally understood. This wasn't just about business. It was about being allowed to exist. The following Monday, Elaine returned to the office to find her desk moved. Not cleaned, moved, no note, no explanation. Just a laminated sign on a new desk by the elevator. Elaine Harper, overflow support. Megan waved from across the room with a tight little smile. It was the final nudge out the door, passive-aggressive, polished. Elaine sat at the new desk and opened her email. Subject, Career Growth Strategy, Megan W. It was an internal thread. CC'd were the senior partners. Megan was pitching herself as ready to assume full reporting ownership of Elaine's duties as part of strategic succession. Elaine was being replaced, in real time, and in writing. She didn't cry. She got up, walked to the bathroom, and looked at herself in the mirror. Gray strands poking through her tied-back hair. Hands marked with dish soap burns. Wrinkles from years of night shifts and sunrises missed. Then she smiled. Not sadly, strategically. Back home that evening, she dressed in her best blouse. Silk, deep green. It had been a gift from Rachel long ago, before all this. She sat at her laptop and opened her encrypted communication portal with Sarah's legal team. Subject, execute black file. She pressed send. Within an hour, her phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Understood. David's shell firms traced. Internal breach confirmed. Investor emails queued. Are you sure you want to escalate? Elaine typed slowly. I don't want escalation. I want respect. If they won't give it to me, I'll take back what I built. As the sun set over Boston, Elaine walked along the Charles River with a calm she hadn't felt in years. Daniel thought she was background noise. Rachel thought she was a closed chapter. They were both wrong. This wasn't revenge. It was protocol, contingency, by design. If you've ever had to plan a backup plan just to be heard, type 3, you deserve more than silence. The champagne flute slipped from Rachel's fingers and shattered at her feet. Across the lawn, her new husband David was being dragged aside by his father, the older man jabbing a finger at a legal document that had just been hand-delivered by the resort coordinator. Confusion rippled through the wedding guests like a virus, people glancing at phones, hushed murmurs rising. "What the hell is going on?" Rachel whispered, turning in slow horror. Then she saw her. Elaine stood by the floral archway, composed, hands folded gently in front of her, watching it all unfold with unsettling calm. "Mom?" Rachel's voice cracked. "What did you do?" Elaine's reply was simple, quiet, but deadly. "I protected my investment." It had started 22 minutes earlier, when the first envelope landed on the Harringtons' dinner plate. "Mr. Whitmore," the coordinator had said professionally, "this was delivered for you and your wife." Inside, a legal notice of operational suspension for Rachel's edit. Simultaneously, investors seated across the venue began receiving identical envelopes. Guests who'd thought they were simply attending a lavish wedding suddenly found themselves implicated in a financial investigation. Then came the second strike. Elaine's legal team, working remotely from Boston, had scheduled a timed release of digital notices. Emails triggered from Rachel's business account began pinging every stakeholder, contractor, vendor, and employee on file. Subject: immediate audit and asset freeze notice. Due to concerns regarding unauthorized financial activity, a full audit of our Edit Collective is now in effect. All operations suspended. All contracts pending legal review. The chaos erupted in layers. David stormed over, face flushed. "You've gone too far." Elaine didn't move. "You plan to dissolve my stake, shift the assets into shell LLCs, strip me out, quietly, after today." "You had no right," he hissed. "Not at the wedding, not like this." "I gave you every chance to back off," Elaine said, "but your arrogance required witnesses." Rachel joined him, mascara smudging at the corners of her eyes. "Mom, you're destroying everything. My name, my business." "My business," Elaine cut in, voice steady. "That I funded, that I signed ownership papers for, that you tried to erase." Just a week ago, Elaine had reviewed the final phase of Sarah's contingency plan. It had confirmed everything. Rachel had sold 18% of the company to David's contacts, illegally, without board consent. $212,000 had been funneled into a real estate project registered under Whitmore Strategies LLC. A pending motion had been drafted, set to be filed the day after the wedding, removing Elaine from all decision-making via forged amendment. Sarah had looked her in the eye and asked, "Do you want to fight, or do you want to finish this?" Elaine didn't answer. She only nodded. Back at the wedding, Rachel was trembling. "You could have come to me. You didn't have to humiliate us like this." "I did come to you," Elaine said. "For years. You just stopped listening." Rachel's voice cracked. "You're my mother." "And you're the daughter who told people she built her empire from nothing." They stared at each other, two women in gowns of very different price points, bonded by blood but shattered by betrayal. Meanwhile, David's father was now speaking furiously to a man Elaine recognized as one of the boutique's angel investors. Papers in hand, phones ringing, his voice rose above the string quartet still trying to play softly in the corner. "You let my son use your wife's company to launder real estate debt." "This wasn't part of the deal," the man barked back. "She wasn't supposed to have voting control." They had forgotten. They had underestimated the one thing Elaine still had. The legal ownership they thought she wouldn't know how to use. They assumed silence was ignorance. They assumed wrong. Rachel turned to David. "Fix this." David swallowed hard. "Let me talk to her." He approached Elaine again. "Name your price. We'll buy you out. Double your initial investment." Elaine smiled faintly. "You think this is about money?" David tried a softer tone. "I understand pride, but don't ruin your daughter's reputation over a misunderstanding." "I'm not ruining anything," she said. "I'm revealing what's already rotten." He leaned in, jaw clenched. "You don't know what kind of doors you're closing." Elaine didn't flinch. Then they weren't doors I was ever invited through, and they're certainly not ones I'll let my name be dragged through. Across the lawn, the guests had begun to realize something was terribly wrong. The DJ stopped playing. Staff whispered among themselves. Rachel's bridesmaids huddled, confused and fidgeting with their bouquets. Then someone pulled out their phone and opened Instagram. The boutique's page, Rachel's edit, had gone dark. Every post gone. A placeholder message read, "This business is currently under audit due to financial inconsistencies. Further updates will follow from legal counsel." Gasps echoed around the tent. Rachel stared at her mother. "You killed it. Everything I worked for." "No," Elaine said, stepping closer. "I killed the version you built on lies." As the sun dipped lower, Elaine felt something surprising. Peace. She had feared this moment for so long, feared it would break her, but instead, it felt clean. This wasn't rage. This was clarity. She turned and began walking toward the boardwalk, heels crunching softly on gravel. Rachel called after her one last time, voice shaking. "So that's it? You just walk away?" Elaine paused, then turned slightly. "I gave you everything, and when you showed me what that was worth, I believed you." She continued walking. A few steps later, she added, without turning back, "This time, I keep the ending." If you've ever had to destroy your silence just to protect your truth, type 4 in the comments. Your voice matters.